All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're opening up the toolkit for one of the most fundamental things in all of programming, the Python string. Seriously, you're going to use these everywhere.
But hey, before we even write a single line of code, let me ask you a question. Just think about it for a second. With all the information zipping around the planet, on the internet, on your phone, everywhere, what is the single most common type of data you can think of? You got it. It's just text. It's so simple, right? But from your name to this very explainer, text is absolutely everywhere. And in the world of Python, our tool for handling all that text is something called a string.
So in this first part, let's get to know the Python string. Think of this as us examining the raw materials, the wood or the metal that we're going to use to build all sorts of amazing things.
So what exactly is a string? Well, at its heart, it's just a sequence of characters. It could be letters, numbers, symbols, you name it. The only rule in Python is you've got to wrap them in quotes. You can use single quotes, double quotes, or even triple quotes if you have a bunch of text that spans multiple lines. They all do the same job.
Now, because a string is a sequence, we can actually look at the individual pieces. So if we have our hello world string, we can ask Python, hey, what's the character at position number 1? And it'll come back and say, that's an E. Simple enough. But this leads to a really important question. If we can look at a character, does that mean we can also change it? Can we just reach in there and swap out that E for an A? I mean, it seems like something we should be able to do, right?
And the answer is a hard no. If you even try it, Python will immediately stop you with this type error. And this brings us to one of the most important concepts about strings. They are immutable. That's a fancy word that just means once you create a string, you can't change it. Ever. If you want to change it, you actually have to create a whole new string.
Okay, so if we can't change strings, how in the world do we work with them? Well, this is where we break out our inspection tools, indexing and slicing. These are the ways we can peer inside a string and pull out the exact pieces we're interested in.
Now here's where Python gets really clever. Every single character in a string gets its own address, which we call an index. We can count from the left, starting at 0, that's the positive index, but, and this is super handy, you can also count from the right using negative numbers. So the very last character is always at index -1. No more complicated math to find the end.
Okay, so that brings us to slicing. If indexing is like picking out a single character, slicing is like grabbing a whole chunk of them. The syntax is pretty straightforward. Start, end. But here's the one rule you have to burn into your memory. It grabs everything from the start index up to, but not including, the end index.
Let's make that real. If we take our hello world string and we slice it from 1 to 5, here's what happens. We start at index 1, which is the E. Then we take index 2, L, index 3, L, and index 4, O, and we stop before we get to index 5. The result? LO. See how that works?
And Python has some awesome shortcuts for us. If you leave out the end number, Python just assumes you mean go all the way to the end. And if you leave out the start number, it assumes you mean start from the very beginning. It's a really clean and simple way to get prefixes or suffixes from any string. Now for my absolute favorite trick. Slicing can actually take a third number, which we call the step. Most of the time it's just 1, but if you make the step -1, you're telling Python to walk backwards through the string. And just like that, you get a perfectly reversed copy of your string. It's a classic Python one-liner that's insanely useful.
Okay, we've looked inside strings. Now, it's time to actually start manipulating them. This is where we bring out the power tools, operations and methods.
So there are two really basic operations. The plus sign is for concatenation, which is just a fancy way of saying gluing two strings together. And the asterisk, or the star, is for repetition. You just tell it how many times you want to copy the string, and it does it. Simple, powerful, and you will use them constantly.
Now this is where the real fun begins. Strings come with a ton of built-in methods. You can think of these like special functions that are attached right to the string itself. In one simple command, you can make everything uppercase or lowercase, get rid of annoying white space, replace certain characters, or even chop up a sentence into a list of words. And here is a perfect example of why these are so great. Let's say you get some data from a user, and it's messy. It's got all these extra spaces at the beginning and end. Instead of writing a bunch of code to fix it, you just call .strip and boom, done. You get back a perfectly clean string.
All right, so we've seen all the individual pieces. We know what a string is, we know how to inspect it, and we know how to manipulate it. Now, let's put it all together and see how these tools combine to solve an actual problem.
And the problem we're going to tackle is checking if a word is a palindrome. A palindrome is just a word that reads the same forwards and backwards. You know, words like level, race car, or the one you see here, Canuck.
So how would we actually code this up? Well, the logic is really elegant. Imagine you put one finger on the first letter of the word and another finger on the last letter. You ask, do these two letters match? If they do, you move both fingers one step closer to the middle and ask again. The moment you find a mismatch, you know it's not a palindrome. But if your fingers meet in the middle without ever finding a mismatch, you've got yourself a palindrome. It's a beautiful little algorithm that uses indexing and loops perfectly.
You know, that ability to solve a text-based problem so cleanly with just code, it's really part of the magic of computers. It makes me think of this quote from Bill Gates. It really gets to the heart of what we're talking about. Strings let us store and work with endless amounts of text, from a single word to every book ever written, and it doesn't take up any physical space or have any weight. It's the basis of our whole information age.
So if you take just one thing away from all of this, let it be this. Mastering strings isn't just about learning a little bit of Python syntax. It's about learning the fundamental skill for dealing with text data. And text data is by far the most common type of data on the entire planet.
Think about it. Everything from data science to web development to AI, it is all built on top of these exact tools we just talked about. So you have the toolkit now. The only question left is, what are you going to build with it?